Hello everyone. Today we are in the Gospel of Luke and we're reading chapter 21 in its entirety. There's a theme that I think emerges in this particular chapter that at least jumped out for me. We begin to see it take shape at the very beginning as we read this. While Jesus was in the temple, he watched the rich people dropping their gifts in the collection box. Then a poor widow came by and dropped in 2 small coins. I tell you the truth, Jesus said, this poor widow has given more than all the rest of them, for they have given a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she has. There are really 2 external ways of assessing our internal spiritual condition. Think about this for a minute. There's lots of things that we're aware of as God is at work in our hearts. But as far as what happens to us on the outside, what people can see, it really comes down to 2 things. Where you spend your time and where you spend your money. Now in this case, Jesus is looking at this scene where everybody's there gathering at the temple. That's what they're there to spend time with God. But while it doesn't say this, you get the impression that the people who are rich are not actually there for God. You sort of get the sense that they're there to make a show of their offering. And so suddenly you get the sense that this is not about them being there for God. It's about them being there for themselves, trying to show that they can keep up with the Kardashians. So they're there to kind of brag as they contribute whatever large sum of money it is they think they can contribute. But for this poor widow, her being there was going to be more embarrassing than not. She's poor, surrounded by people who are flaunting their wealth. And so that means that she's really only there for one reason, and that is to give glory to God. And then, as Jesus points out, she gives from her poverty, putting God above all things, putting him first. Whereas he is aware of the fact that these rich folks are just giving a tiny bit of their surplus, as it says. So they're not putting God first at all. They're putting themselves first. And I think that's the theme that we're catching on to as Jesus then goes on to foretell the future, both in terms of the crucifixion and the resurrection, but also of what's going to come in the last days, and how our perspectives and our attitudes are going to make all the difference. We're going to pick up at verse 34, where Jesus is kind of concluding his remarks on foretelling the future, as he says this: watch out. Don't let your hearts be dulled by carousing and drunkenness and by the worries of this life. Don't let that day catch you unaware like a trap, for that day will come upon everyone living on the earth. Keep alert at all times and pray that you might be strong enough to escape these coming horrors and stand before the Son of Man. I like that. Watch out. Don't let your heart be dulled by carousing and drunkenness and by the worries of this life. The widow at the beginning of this chapter had put God first, made God her focus, and was willing to make a fool of herself in public by being present and giving of her scarcity to God first. We, if we stay focused, get to give the same heartfelt gift to God. And as we do, then we don't really need to worry. But as Jesus warns, watch out. There are lots of things that would attempt to distract us and take our eyes off of Jesus. It reminds me of a story that is recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, when Peter sees Jesus walking on the water and asks if he can come out and walk with him. And Jesus says yes, and we pick up at verse 29. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. I think these 2 messages are the same. When we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, we can walk across the water despite the storms and chaos going on around us. But when we allow our eyes to move from Jesus to that chaos, we begin to worry about the things of this world, or we dull our senses by carousing and drunkenness and lose focus on Christ, that's when we begin to sink. So the call for me today, I know, is to keep my focus on God. I realize that there's chaos in the world around me, and I'm not going to deny that it's there, but my focus needs to be on Jesus. And as I keep that focus, I realize that by God's grace, I get to walk through those storms. And that's what Jesus is inviting all of us to do, to keep our focus on Him so that He can walk with us as we penetrate the storm, to celebrate God's glory and invite others to join us. That is our mission, to share the love of Jesus Christ, and we experience that as we keep our hearts and minds focused on Him. Have a great day, everyone.
If these devotional videos are helpful to you, subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you know when we post a new video. And of course, please share them with others.